Okay, we're in the middle of a sugya. Well, Moshe Rabbeinu was a kohen or not? So we're questioning that. We're saying perhaps he was a zar. So up to two lines from the bottom and kuf aleph on the base. Amr of Sheshes. No, that was the teretz. That was the teretz. Amr of Sheshes lebibama, the zar. Okay, Yoma yesh bim chulibama. Mesve. Mesve, at the Mesve. Yeah. Miriam mi hiskira. We know Miriam was she was a Mitzayra. In order to be Mitzayra, you need a kohen to pronounce that you're a Mitzayra. Unless the kohen pronounces you Mitzayra, you're not a Mitzayra. Im time Moshe skira, Moshe zarhu. If you can tell me Moshe put her away, Moshe was a zar. There's your kasha, guys. Your kasha is right there. You said Moshe is a kohen. It says over here he was a zar. Okay, let's continue the brisa. Right. Ve'ein zar amid aleph. Ve'ein zar and a non kohen. Rayas in the goyim is not able to see in the goyim. Vim taima Aaron is skira. You can see Aaron put her away and pronounce that she's a mitzvah. Aaron karavhu. Aaron was a relative. So what's the Vel's kasha, guys? Vein karav rayas and a goyim. So why do you have to say Moshe is a zar? Moshe was a karav, right? Yeah. Okay, we'll see a teretz in a second. Ella kavod gadol chalak le'Kadosh Baruch Hu Miriam. Right. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave kavod gadol to Miriam. Oisa Shah at that time. Ani kayin. Hashem says I'm a kayin. Vani mazgira and I'll put her away. Ani chalta vani paitra. I'll pronounce that she's a mitzayra and I'll pata her. Okay, so she had covered gadol that the kayin was not Judah Cohen, but the kayin was Hashem. Ketani miyas. None of us to learn that Moshe is zar. They ain't zar. Rayas in the goyim. Moshe was a zar, and a zar can't see in the goyim. But the kasher is Rav said Moshe Rabbeinu was a kayin, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was a kayin gadol, and they gave him. So the chayre you see is a zar. So how can you tell he's a kayin? Some Rav Nachman Yitzchak shiny maris negayim. The Aaron who Banov Kesuvim in the parsha. Moshe was the kayin, but since in the parsha it's Aaron who Banov, Moshe was excluded. But it's not schwer to say that Moshe was what a kayin. Eitzel negayim, Moshe was a zar. Okay, it's the great kasha over, guys. This is kasha the teretz. We have kuf beis amid aleph at the top. Kuf beis amid aleph at the top. So we asked the kasha. We said, who put Miriam away? In order to go ahead and be a mitzayra, you have to kohen has to pronounce that you're a mitzayra. Who could have done it? Moshe couldn't do it because Moshe was not a kohen; he was a zar. That was the kasha on Rav, right? Aaron couldn't do it because he was a relative. Frek the Welt, Moshe was also a relative. Why did you have to say Moshe was a zar? Why do you have to say Moshe was a zar? Moshe was also, even if it was a kohen, he couldn't put her away. He was a karev. So there are a few terutzim. I'll share with you one that I have written down. I think it's Gavaldik from the Gurari, from the Maral. Listen to this teretz, guys. Listen to this teretz. All of Klal Yisrael were underneath the mountain. Kaf aleim har kagigas. So basically, their conversion was a forced conversion. You know, it's Kaidem Matan Torah. Let's say they were Yidden. They were encouraged to bris Torah by Matan Torah. So the mountain was over them. So they were a forced conversion. Who was not a forced conversion? Moshe, because Moshe was what? Above. Gershon is Gayer. A ger that goes ahead is Misgayer is what? Is Kikot and Chanel dummy. So Taka was not related to Miriam, and therefore what? You had to come from the reason that he was a Zor, not a Karev. You hear this, guys? You hear this Gavaldig? An Einfall of an Einfall. Like one more time. So Moshe was the only really true ger because he wasn't forced, because he was on top of the mountain besides Mount Torah. All everyone else had a din of a nusim. They were forced. It's like kimu v'kiblu, right? They were makabim by Purim. They were kimu v'kiblu, right? They were forced. So Memela Moshe was a ger. Gershon is guy cut Chanel dummy. Memela Moshe could not pronounce it, not because he wasn't Takas the Korah if he could have pronounced it, but in Achinami because he was. It's a gavaldik. It's a lum de shevelam. It's a tremendous chapi teretz from the Maharal in the Gur Aryeh. Okay, basically we're continuing to question the idea that Moshe was a kohen, right? We're questioning the idea that Moshe was a kohen. Rav said Moshe was a kohen gadol, and we're questioning that. Basically, Chamesh Smachos Hoise Elisheva Yisera Al Benos Yisrael. Five smachos, very happy things that apply to her over a regular Bas Yisrael. One, Yavam Melech. Who was Hayavam? Moshe. Moshe, he was a melech. So the Gemara is going to ask, guys, he's a melech, not a kohen, right? Okay, that's going to be the kasha. Isha, her husband, kohen gadol. Aaron was what? Binah, her son, right? Elazar, Sagan, second in command. Ben Binah, her grandson Pinchas, Meshuach Mulchama. He was the kohen that was in charge of what? By war, telling the people who's scared, go back home. Achia and her brother Nachshon, Nasi Shevet. He was the Nasi of Shevet Yehuda. Okay, those are the 5 things. And she was an oval on her 2 sons, Nadav Avihu. Getani Mias, Yavama Melech. Yavama Maisha was a Melech. Melech in Kohen Gadol. He was a Melech, but he wasn't a Kohen Gadol. So the Kashan Rav, and for the Gemara, Ema Af Melech. Even Ema say Af Melech. He even was a Melech. Af Melech, he even was a Melech. Kit Hanoi. We have Machloikas Tanoim. Okay, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was in Mitzrayim, because Baruch Hu's trying to talk him into it, and he says, "How can I go down? I'm Ralph Vasayim. I can't talk." And finally, Kadosh Baruch Hu has had it with Moshe, and he tells him the following: "Vayicha Af Hashem b'Moshe, Rabbi Yeshua ben Korach Omer, Kol Charin Af Sheb'Torah." Anytime the Torah says there's anger, right? Never b'Roshim. There's this afterwards. There's an effect. There's an effect of that anger. Right? And this, there was no Roshim. After he's angry at Moshe, you don't see the effect. No. I've said Nema Roshim. Even here there was a Roshim. Shnemar, Halei Aaron Achicha Halevi. Right? It says, the Pasuk says, Halei Aaron Achicha Halevi. Well, 1 second. Levi Vala Kainu. He was a Kayin. Says Hachi Kamar. Ani Amati Ata Kayin. I said you, Moshe, is supposed to be a Kayin. For who Levi? And he was supposed to be Levi. Achshav, that you are going ahead and you listen to go ahead and go right away to Paro. Who Kayin? He's going to be the Kayin, the Ata Levi. So therefore, according to this opinion, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, Moshe was not a Kayin, he was a Levi. Okay, that the Moshe was not Niskayin only for the 7 days. The kahuna was pasak mizar shel Moshe. So the chachamim Moshe said was a kohen for 7 days, not a kohen gadol, right? So that's not like Rav. That's the machlokes tanoim. As opposed to what? Opposed to the Yeshayimim said that Moshe was a kohen until his children. It stopped by his children. But that's the Tanoic opinion, the opinion of the Yeshayimim, that Moshe was a kohen. So Rav was going according to the Yeshayimim. Again, you had Kasha and Rav. Was Moshe a kohen or not? We have an opinion of Yeshayim, Moshe was a kohen. His children were not kahana, but he was a kohen. Opinion of the chachamim. Now he was only a kohen for 7 days, and that's it. Okay. Shenemar u'Moshe ish Elokim banav yikaru al shevet halevi. Moshe ish Elokim, his children were called on shevet Levi. And the second pasuk v'Amar Moshe v'Aaron b'Chayanav u'Shmuel b'Karei Shemai. And Moshe, Aaron among his priests, and Shmuel in calling his name. What do you have to need the second pasuk for? Maybe it's only the Dairis, that his children. Just to count them among the Dairis. Therefore, therefore it says Moshe and Aaron were Kahanim. Every af in the Torah, does it say there was an effect as a result? Every single case there was effect. 1 second, I'm not sure of that. Right? For Haksiv it says Vayetze Me'im Paroi B'Choriof. Moshe left Paroi B'Choriof. V'Yamalev Lamidi. So where's the Roshim there? Resh Lakish Sitroi. You know what the simon was? Moshe slapped Paro V'Yetze and he left. That was the Roshim. Umiyam Resh Lakish Hachi. Does Resh Lakish say that Moshe slapped Paroi? There was a Roshim V'Ksiv. How could he have possibly slapped Moshe? V'Ksiv V'Nitzafta L'Krosai by the Paro went to the river and he stood. L'Krosai called out to him, Al Svasayar, Ramesh Lakish, Melechu, right? He's a Melech. For his blay upon him, you should show some covet. So how can Resh Lakish say he slapped him in his face? You see that by over here, he said, call out to him, don't give him covet. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Rashahu, V'heis Panechaboy, he said, as upon him, and you can go ahead and show him in kind. So you have a Kashan Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish says what? That he slapped him in the face, and the other, and he says, give him covet. So switch it around. Reish Lakish said it's aspanim, and Reish Yochanan is the one that said give him covet. Rabbi Yanai, lo'ilam te emes malchus alecha. The fear of malchus should always be upon you. Dichsiv veyedu kol abadecha ele elai. If the makas b'chayris, right? If the makas b'chayris, Moshe says v'yardu kol abadecha ele elai v'shtachavu li, and they'll come down. All your servants will come down, will come to me and bow down to me. Say ata v'chalom asher b'raglecha v'yachkein eitzeh v'yeitzim yimparu b'choriyah. So that's what the pasuk says. So. The illy they like Hamalei. It's in fact Paro also had Makas Becharis came down, but you see that Moshe gave respect to Malchus, saying all your avodim going to come down, because in fact Paro also came down, right? Paro also came down, but we're showing respect for Paro that he didn't say you're going to come down. Rabbi Yochanan Amami Hacha, V'yad Hashem Hoysa El Eliyahu, right? Vayishanes Musnav, he girded himself. Vayoretz L'Achav, Achav was a Rasha Marusha. And nonetheless, what? Eliyahu Navi ran in front of him to go ahead and give covet to the king. He ran in front of him and wanted to give covet to the king. Ama'ula, Bikesh Moshe Malchus, Moshe wanted to be the king, and it wasn't given. In the Tziv, Al Tikra of Haloim. It says by the sneh, Al Tikra of Haloim. Don't come close to here. Haloim, the play on words is Haloim. Vein Haloim, Ela Malchus. This Haloim is only Lashon Malchus. Nemar, David HaMelech says, Mi Anochi Hashem Elokim, Ki Visani Ad Haloim. Right, that who am I, Hashem, that you brought me what ad haloim? There's a limit over here. It's not in this Gemara. The Gemara discusses Moshe had a grandson of Menashe, Yoina's son, and he ended up being he wasn't a Kohen, but he ended up being the priest to Pesel Micha, and he said they used the lashon. Maz, what are you doing over here? Haloim? You're a grandson of Moshe Rabbeinu, and I think they use lashon of Haloim there also, if I remember correctly. Massiv Rava, Rabbi Shmuel Loime Yevamai Melech, right? So Rava, yes, Rabbi Shmuel says that your Yavam is a Melech, right? So you see, he is a king. He said Bikesh Moshe to be the king, right? He said Moshe wanted to be the king, but he wasn't. But in fact, according to the opinion, he was the king. Guys, look at the first wide line of the Gemara. Yevamai Melech in Kain Gadolai, but Yevamai Elishev is Yavam was Moshe, and you say he is a king. Zaki told me he's not a king. You see, he is a king. Amarava loyal Zarai Kamar. When he said Moshe wanted to be a king, he not only wanted for him to be the king, he wanted his children as well. He wanted his children as well to be the king. And then Salayim means for him and future generations. But regarding Shol, the Chsiv, by Shol it says, Vayishlu oid b'Hashem, hava oid haloim. Bring over here ish. Vayom Hashem hine hu nechbel hakelim. Shol was hiding by the luggage. He was a snua. You don't want to be, but it says hava oid haloim. Now, Haloim, you telling means Melech for himself and future generations. Guys, Shol wasn't for future generations. Shol was the king. So you see, it says Haloim, but it wasn't future generations. Who in Zareloi, Iba Yisema Have Ishbaishes, his son Ishbaishes was king for a short period of time. Shol's son Ishbaishes was king. Iba Yisema Shiny Shol, that feel begavei loikoyim. Shol was different. Usually that it exists by him. And it stops over there. Shol, right? It's stopped even by him. Kid Rebbe Laza, Amr Chanina. B'shosha poiskin gedula adam. When they paskin gedula for a person, poiskin loyal zaro at sav kol adairos. It's for him and future generations. Shenemar, of course, the pasuk says. Let me get the pasuk correctly. Lo yigra mitzadik einov bes malachim like he say. However, v'mheges daito, if he becomes a balgaiva, Kodesh Baruch Hu mashpilo, Kodesh Baruch Hu lowers him. Shenemar v'im asurim bazikim yukodu b'chavlei oinein. Right? I guess asura bazikim is lashon of wind. If you're tied by a wind, yilkadu b'chavlei oinein. You will what? You'll be captured by chavlei oinein. I don't know. Again, pasuk. It's a pasuk in Iyov. Okay, so that's the end of the Agadita. End of Agadita. Now we can get down to learning. Says the Gemara. It said the Balmum when it says a balmum eats, he gets a chelik, guys. The Mishnah said balmum, whether balimumim bein balimumim oivrim, whether it's one that's going to pass bein balimumim koivim cholkin, they get a piece of the action voichlin and they eat, even though they can't do the avodah. Even though they can't do the avodah, they're going to get a piece of the action and they can eat. Menani mili, the Tana Rabbanon, the pasuk says. Menani mili, the pasuk says. Kol zacha b'nei Aaron yachlena. Kol zacha, any zacha b'nei Aaron yachlena. And this is a pasuk in Vayikra Vav. Now, lemai, what does it mean when it says kol zacha? What does it mean? What does it come to include? Ilachila, if it's including balmum, the rabbi's balmum, it comes to include balmum. Lemai, ilachila, to eat. I have another pasuk for that. How you find Nemar? Lechem elokov mikotche akadoshim yochel. Right. So you see that pasuk says the balmum meats. So when it says kol zachar, it must be to include the Indian chalukah to get a piece of the action. Again, we spoke out. You can be invited to eat, or you can get your own food. They got their own food. So therefore, the kol zachar is to say they get the chalukah because you have a pasuk lechem elokov mikotche akadoshim. That teaches me they eat. Tanya idach, a similar brisa. Kol zachar, but this is a different pasuk. Kol zachar b'kahanim yochel oisa, and kol the rabbis balmumim. Lemai ilachila haikvain nemar lechem elokov mikotche Hashem yochel. Ilachaluka haikvain nemar. It says kol zacha. It says kol zacha yochlena. No, that's the first pasuk. So l'chayra, I have a pasuk telling me chaluka. I got a pasuk telling me achila. So what does the come to include? Shiachol only elatam. I would say only a person, a kohen that's tam. V'naseh balmum, and then becomes a balmum. Balmum meikar minayin. Talmud loymar kol zacha. Guys, you would have thought that a person who was never a kohen that was born rain. The chiddush over here is he was never rain. He was never clean. He was always a balmum. That's what kol zacha comes to include. Afilu a balmum meikara. He never was what? He never was tamim. He never was wholesome and pure. Okay, that's the second brisa. Tanya yidach, a third brisa. It says by the Karban Asham, kol zacha b'kohanim yochlenu. So now we have three kol zachas. One by Asham, one by chatas, and one by mincha. Kol zacha b'kohanim yochlenu. It calls the rabbis balmum. Lamai ilachila k'vayin nemar already said lechem alakov. Bila chalukah k'vayin nemar says kol zacha. Bila balmum mekaroi already said kol zacha. Ela, what do you need this for? Only ela balmum kavua. Only I would say a balmum kavua eats. Balmum oiver minayin, that he also gets a piece of the action. Excuse me, not eating, getting a piece of the action. Talmud loymar kol zacha. Now, guys, what would you think? Who gets more mistabed to get a piece of the action? A balmum kavua or balmum oiver? Balmum oiver. But you're telling me the opposite over here. You're telling me what? The pasuk tells me about balmum kavua. That, in other words, kol zacha would tell me a balmum that's permanent. But I would say a balmum oiver, what? No. Says the Gemara, klapi laya. Klapi means it's as far as the opposite way, right? Right? As far as that balmum oiver should eat. So Rav Shesh's apech, switch it around. The limit is for balmum oiver, and I would think a balmum kavua, not kamash malon. You need to tell me a balmum oiver, because I would have said the following: Sakadai chamin on the base, ki tame. I would say a balmum oiver is like a tame. Ma tame kamad tar loyachol. Af hainami kamad mitakan loyachol kamash malon. Guys, a balmum kavua is kavua. He's never getting back in, right? Balmum oiver could get back in, so I'd say like a tame. When he's out, he's out. I would say a balmum oiver, what? So I need a pasuk to tell me, even though it's a balmum oiver, and it's as far to say he should be out of the ballpark, Kamash Milan Kozaki is still in the ballpark. That's a bigger chiddush. Nice teretz. Okay. The Mishnah said, Kol she'ena roy la'avoida. Anyone who's not roy la'avoida, give him here, Rabbi Avi. Yeah. Yes. Kol she'ena roy la'avoida, ein cholik bebasa. We said anyone who's not roy to the avoida does not get a piece of the action. Fred v'loi. First, that anyone who is not roy la'avoida. 1 second, very balmum. The roy la'avoida v'cholik. The balmum is not roy, and yet he gets a piece of the action. V'su. What's the diak, guys? What's the diak? Kol she'ena roy. Roy la'avoida cholik. Mashma in the positive. If you are roy la'avoida, you get. Very tame b'kabanis tzibur the roy la'avoida, and ve'ena cholik. a tame by if tuma was bitzibur, he goes and does the avodah, yet he doesn't get a piece of the actual game. He said yesterday. So in other words, A, your statement is incorrect, and B, your inference of your statement is incorrect. Guys, it's important. Kol she'ein roi doesn't get. Balmum is not roi, he gets. And mashma kol haroi does get. Kayin tuma sibor is roi, and he doesn't get. Okay? Right? So the Gemara answers roi lachila kamar. We're speaking of anyone who's roi, anyone who's not roi lachila ain't a chaylik, right? And kol she'ein roi lachila chaylik. Good. Anyone who's roi lachila bid chaylik. Very cotton the roi lachila ain't a chaylik. The cotton is roi lachila and he doesn't get a piece of the action. And for the Gemara halaykatani, the Mishnah did not write loy. It said shekol she'ein roi lachila ain't a chaylik. But this diak that you're making, anyone who's roi lachila does get. Now is that your diak's for cotton? Anyone who's roi lachila gets, right? But the cotton's roi lachila not. In other words, where's the kasha on cotton, guys? Not the statement, the inference. Our statement: anyone who's not roi lachila. Mashma if you're roi lachila, and now you're making that statement. If you're roi lachila, so now you have a kasha from cotton, from your inference. So it's Gemara. Don't make the inference. The chiddush is that anyone who's not roi, right, doesn't get a piece. Don't make the so now. Hashras the hachi. Now that you come to this terrace, that you're not making the inference of, but if you are roi, you do get la'olam kidukama meikara. Like you said initially, anyone who's not roi, forget achila. Anyone who's not roi lavoida, because you don't have to make the diak about, but you are roi lavoida, right? Right. Imishum tamei lekatani, right? If imishum tamei that tamei that he's roi lavoida ve'ena oichel shari tamei lekatani. You didn't learn anyone who's not roi, but roi that you need roi and the tummy is not roi. Imishum balmum, and because of balmum rachmana rabbi. The Torah goes to what? So tummy is not takanah included. The tummy doesn't get a piece of the action, and the balmum that he gets a piece of the action is the riboy from the Torah. So we said afilu tamei b'shas zrika, even if he's tamei at the time of the zrika, even if he's tamei at the time of the zrika, the tamei b'shas hekta chalavim, and he's tamei at the time you're burning of the chalavim, chaylik. Masnisan, the loyal kabashol, the Tanya Abashol Aimer, loylam eina oichel, he does not eat. At sheitar, he has to be tar mishas rika, at shas hekta chalavim, throughout. He has to be tar from point A to point B. Damakra, hamakra v'stam shlomim, that's the rika. There's a chalev, that's burning, right? Chalev. That feel hekta chalavim nami boy. So Amish is mashma, all you have to be is in the ballpark by Srika. No, Abishol says, afilu, if you're not in the ballpark, what by Hekta chalavim, you're also out. Boy Ravashi, what about the following cases? Nitma bein tayim. You were by Zrika, you were tahar, you became tamei, and then b'shas the murim. Let's say you became tamei, you touched the sheretz, you went to the mikvah, you waited for nightfall, and they burned the evarim. Guys, you could burn the evarim at night. So therefore, you were tamei between the Zrika and the aktara, but you were tahar by both. You were tahar b'shas the Zrika. You were out of the ballpark. Then you got back in the ballpark. Are you back in? Would you be able to get a piece of the action? Okay? So boy Ravashi, nitma bin tayimau. B'shas rika, b'shas k'tara bin, you need both. V'yikah, and you have it. Like dilma ad sheheitar mishas rika, the ad shas k'tara. In other words, you need a continuity. It's not pshat that 1 and then 3. You need what? From 1 through 3 and not being off the wagon by 2. Amar Rabba. Hai dina me Rebbe Loza Reb Shimon Gemirna. We learned this din from Rebbe Loza ben Shimon. The Amar, the Beis HaKisei, who said it in the bathroom, right? Okay, again, this is the Gemara is going to ask in the end, okay? And the Nantaba, you can go ahead and you can make this Kal V'chomer. The Nantaba, he said, you can go ahead what and make this Kal V'chomer for a full yom. So Rabbi Elazar, Reb Shimon, Gemirna this din in the Beis HaKisei, and the din is that you're able to go ahead what and make a Kal V'chomer. You're able to make a Kal V'chomer for that a full yom should be able to eat. Okay, let's go through it. The first one we'll get, and the other ones will go very easy after the first one. Okay. The full yom says, "V'amar, tainli mi mincha." Now we know, guys, the kohen gets the shirayim of a mincha, right? He brings the kaimitz, he burns the kaimitz, and he gets the leftover wheat. So the Tful Yom says, give it to me, and I'll eat. Amaloi, right? Uma im b'makom yupa koichacha, in the place where your koich is strong, when you're pure, b'chatascha, right? D'chiyoscha michatas Yisrael, right? Madach, in a place of your chatas. If you would bring your own chatas, guys, if you would bring your own chatas, you would get the meat, right? If you would bring your own chatas, you would get your own meat. Nonetheless, the chisicha michatas Yisrael, you can't take the chelik from the chatas of Yisrael because the full yom is out of the ballpark. Okay, you have a stronger koyach by your chatas. When you do your chatas when you're tahar, you get it, right? You could bring it and you get it. However, if you were at full yom, you would not get what from the chatas of the Yisrael. Malkam shahira kechacha b'mchascha, and you bring a card mincha. What do you get? Chaim, what does a kohen get from his mincha? Nothing. Why? It's burnt. You're that kohen. It's burnt. You get not garnish. You burn it. No kamitza. You just burn the whole thing. There's no kamitza. You just burn the whole thing. What? Okay. It's all about money. Anyway, Malkam Shahara Kachachim Chasla Einay Din Adi Chacham Imchas Yisrael. So guys, let's go outside. Outside, guys. It's a little convoluted until you get it straight. Where you want a piece of the action by mincha, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you have a stronger hold by chatas, yet you don't get the chatas. Kal v'chayme, you shouldn't get the mincha. What's your taina? I'm at full yoim. I'll go to the mikvah. I'm at full yoim. Give me from the mincha, and I'll eat it in the evening. Why not? Sounds good. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Says the kohen to him, 1 second. If you brought your own chatas, you'd get a piece of the action if you're tar, yeah? But if you're at full yoim, you're getting nothing. Mm-hmm. If you brought your own mincha, you'd get nothing. Kol shekain in the Yisrael's mincha, you should get nothing. So in other words, you have a stronger chelik in your chatas, and nonetheless, what? You get nothing in Yisrael's chatas, where you don't have a chelik in the mincha. Kol shekain, you should get in the Yisrael's mincha. I'm going to say it one more time. It makes a lot of sense. In other words, it's a kal v'chayma. Madach by the kal, the chatas, you don't get. Certainly by the mincha, you don't get. Now again, he wants a part of the mincha Yisrael. Says the kohen tartim the following. Says the kohen tartim the following. Your chatas would you get? Because absolutely. In the Yisrael's chatas of your tful yom you get? He goes no. Your mincha do you get if you're tahar? No. Kal v'chayim, when you're at full yom, you shouldn't get in the Yisrael's mincha. That's the kal v'chayim. That's the kal v'chayim. That's what he tells them. Okay, so that's what he tells them. And now, so what is the tful yom answer? Umayim dechisoni michatas Yisrael shekashem sheyupa koichi kach yupa koichacha. And chatas Yisrael, you and I are the same, right? Whichever kohen did it gets it. By your mincha is no different than my mincha. You get nothing. So therefore, I should be getting Yisrael. I should get. So how are you oimer? Therefore, since he shlugged up the kal v'chaymer, therefore he brings a pasuk that says, "La kohen ha'makrivaysa lo yisiyeh." The kohen who's makriv, goes to him. Bo ha'korev echel. So you tell the tful yom, you want to get a piece of the mincha? Who gets it? The one who's makriv it. You go ahead and be makriv it. You'll get it. What's the problem? He's at tful yom. He can't be makriv it. Okay, same dialogue, different case. Different. So now it comes along the tful yom. Says to the kohen, "Tainli mechatis Yisrael. Give me a shtickle chelik of the chatis Yisrael for yoichel. I'll eat it in the evening." In the first case, he wanted from the mincha guys. Now he wants from the chatas. So Amaloi, the kohen that star says to him following. In place where what I don't have a piece of the action in the mincha. I'm pushed away. Even so, right? I'm pushed away from the minchas Yisrael. In a place where I have a stronger chelik in the chatas, Ein a din shadirachim michatas Yisrael is not a din that should be pushed away from chatas Yisrael. Amaloid Tful Yom says, "Uma im shedichisani mimches Yisrael shekashem shehura koichacha kachara koichi." We're both equal that we're pushed away from minchas Yisrael. But tidicheni mimach chatas Yisrael shekashem sheyupa koichacha kach yupa koichi. Right, just like in chatas Yisrael, we equally have the same koyach, and you can't go ahead and push me away. So how do you aimed? For that reason, we say hakoyin and mechata yislayachlena. The koyin that's mechata, the koyin that goes ahead what and does the avoida, does chitu, does the zrika. But so you tell the tful yoim boy chata v'yachal. You come along and you do zrika and you'll eat. Amloid tful yoim says to the koyin that's tar. Tainli michazav b'shoik of the shlamim that Yisrael brought for oichel and I'll eat in the evening. Amloid the koyin that's tar says to the tful yoim uma b'makam sheyupa koichacha b'chatascha. You have koyach in your chatas that you can be zeicha, right? The chisicha mechatas Yisrael, you pushed away from the chatas Yisrael. Mokem shahayre kochacha b'shlamim, in a mokem where you weaken koyach shlamim. Shein lecha behen el chazav b'shoik b'lvad. Ein adin shadi chacha from the rest of it. So what does the full yom say? Ma im the chisani mechatas shekein hara koychi esel nashay v'avodai. You know the chatas. My kids don't get anything. My avodim don't get anything because it's kach kedoshim. Titchani mechazav b'shoik. You want to push away from the chazav b'shoik, which is a shlamim, which is kachim kalim. Shken yupa koichi etzel nashay v'avodai that my kids and my avodim would get. So therefore the kal v'chem is slugged up. Hariyomeh. He says the koyin azayrik is dam hashlamim lo yiyeh. The koyin does the avodah. He gets the chazav b'shoik. Says the Torah to the tefillah boz zarik v'echol comes along what? Come along and you'll eat. Okay, Yotzet Tful leaves. He's packing nefesh. He's upset. Koilov v'chamorev al roishay. He's got his kal v'chomis on his head. Meaning he's out the window. Oinin miyaminoi, and guess who's joined? He's joined by the oimin on the right side. He also doesn't eat. And mechusaki purim and the one who has to bring his kabbanis mismailei. He's on the left side. He doesn't eat. Okay. Yeah, it's very nice. Parko v'chai. Now, Rabbi Lazar Reb Shimon, right? Lei malei. Why didn't he say to the full yom? Why did the full yom say to the kind that's tar? Tein li mi bechar v'oichel. Give me from the bechar and I'll eat. In other words, we stop by chaz v'shayk. There's one more. Tein li from the bechar v'oichel. Mishum the amalei, because what the kind tar could tell the full yom uma b'makam shahara koichi b'chatas eitzel nashay v'avodai that they don't eat. Dichisicha michatas Yisrael. I'm out of the ballpark chatas Yisrael. Makam sheyupa koichi b'bechar. The kula deli. The whole thing belongs to me. Ein oidin she'ad chacham mimenu. Certainly, it's pushed away from you to tful yoim. Uma'im dichisani michatas says that tful yoim shekashem shahayra koichacha kachayra koichi. We're both out of the ballpark. Tadicheni b'bechar shekashem sheyupa koichacha kach yupa koichi. I also have a piece of the action. Hari Oimer. It says by Bechor as damam tizroik al mizbeach veschelbom takter ubisaram. This is what we need. Ubisaram yelecha, bazarik v'yachal. You come along and eat. You come along and eat. So that's what he could have said. Now, Rabbi Lazar Reb Shimon, he didn't mention Bechor. How come? How come he didn't mention this case? So the Gemara wants to know. V'idach Rabbi Lazar Reb Shimon, who didn't mention this din of Bechor, parach miksivu bisaram lekayin azayrik. Does it say that the basa goes to the kayin and does the avoid? It doesn't say that. Ubesarim yeh lechak siv. I feel the kayin acha, guys. Whoever owns it. In other words, if Chaim Lax would give it to Yehuda to go ahead and do the avoida, and it's his bechor, Chaim Lax would get it. It doesn't go for the. You know, that's why he didn't bring it in, because in all the other cases he says, "Do you do the avoida? You do the avoida, and then what? And since you're at full yom, you can't do the avoida. You're stuck." Mashen came over here. Even if you can't do the avoida, right, he could do it for you. Therefore, he didn't bring it in. Okay. Therefore, what? Therefore he didn't bring it in. Now the question is, how could Rabbi Lazar Shimon speak in Torah in the base like he say? Getting back, Shimon hachi to say Torah in the base like he say. Every place is permitted to be mahara to think in the very Torah. Chutz mi merchatz mi base like he say, and Gemara lo ain't say shiny. It was a niceness, you know. He couldn't stop thinking, learning. And my Rabbi once said. My Rabbi once said one time, he goes, "Vi al molen in mitten shmureh say krecht der eine Teisvis." That was by me. That would be the best davening. Okay. Have a good evening.
Good,